Oh boy. Planned Parenthood sure is gonna hate this one. On today's episode of the What Is Up podcast, Bubba sits down with a couple of Wapsie parents, Tim and Leah Schneider. And let me tell ya, it gets real. Going back to their high school and college days, Tim was that guy that your parents warned you about. And Leah was the stellar athlete that could never quite win the big game. Or even get to it, actually. Somehow, though, they ended up finding each other. But even with two high-powered pharmaceutical degrees, life can still get tough. The question is, how you gonna handle it?
Word, brother.
Tim and Leah will be totally honest and tell you that the worst night of their life turned into one of the best things that ever happened to them. Yeah, they said it, and so does Bubba, and so will I. Special Needs Kids Rock!
You said it, man!
Here's your host, Bubba Seaman.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what is up? Welcome to a special episode of the What Is Up podcast. We got another first here. For the first time in our 10-month history, we've got a husband-wife combo in the studio today. I told you guys, we're moving up in the podcast world. We're doing new things. We're soaring to new heights, if you will. You may even see us in your town parade this summer. Well, I mean, if you live in Fairbank or maybe Dunkerton, I don't know. That's about it. We're not traveling too far. We got any volunteers out there? Anybody with a What Is Up shirt? If you want to come and carry a banner or maybe throw some candy, I think we're even doing cups with our logo on. If you want to be a part of that, hit me up. whatisuppodcast@gmail.com. We'll get you in the parade. And to the audience, let me just remind you, you can be a part of this meteoric rise by making sure you subscribe, follow, like, wherever you listen. If it's Spotify, if it's Apple Podcasts, if it's YouTube, it basically means nothing if you don't subscribe or follow it. The internet doesn't know we exist if you don't do that. Leave us a 5-star rating. I know Spotify does that. I think iTunes does that. Leave us a 5-star. It's okay if you think we're less than that. Just leave that 5-star. Follow our social media on Instagram and Facebook. We're, in our 40s, so we don't do the TikTok thing. I know that's big, but we're old. So we're on Facebook, and I'm trying to figure out Instagram, I guess. So, and then share it with all your friends on your social media. That's a big thing. Make sure and share it. I think we're approaching 300 Facebook followers. That's not a ton. So I know we can do better than that. So don't be too embarrassed. All right. The Bible says, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of this thing. Show off your impeccable taste by sporting some of our merch. My guests today, they're going to leave with some, whether it's shirts or hats or a mug or something like that. That's the deal. You come on and share your story, you're going to get something for free. And who doesn't like free stuff? But for the rest of you, you can always support us by buying some of this stuff too. That's kind of why we got it, to do some advertising. But I'm not made of money, so you can buy something. And then send us a picture of yourself wearing some of our awesome gear. I think you noticed in our last video or our last social media post, we've got some people out there that are buying this stuff, wearing this stuff. We had some pretty good pictures out there. So, and once you've done all that, then you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Today's guests are a couple of friends of mine. We got kids the same age. Our families are kind of in the same phase of life right now. So our families look very similar, but very different for a number of different reasons. One of the main differences is they chose the exact opposite route of Sarah and myself, and they went for higher education, a lot of it. And they both have very good careers in the pharmaceutical world. So, and the other big difference is they have a pool with like a half wraparound deck out back. Oh man, when I went for that pre-meeting and I saw that, I was like, that was the indicator when we were kids, if someone was rich. And now that I'm older, I understand that doesn't mean you're rich, but when you're a kid and you saw somebody with a pool, you're like, oh wow, they must be rich, right? Anybody remember that? And lastly, one of the big main differences is one of their kids, Evan, the kid that makes all of us smile whenever you see him. He's the most special needs kid he's the most special needs kids that I know. Okay? So, of course, I'm talking with Tim and Leah Schneider. What is up, guys?
What's up, Bubba?
Bubba, thanks for having us.
Thank you guys for accepting. Would you believe I've been turned down by a few people?
No.
Yes, I have. And it hurts my feelings. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. But I'm glad you guys accepted, because I had a specific thing in mind when I asked you guys. Because if you remember, I think I texted you guys on the way home one night from it was like a Wednesday night in the winter. Mm-hmm. And I just, as these things come to my mind or these issues come up in the world, and I just think, this is a podcast for real life people with real world experiences. And I just seen this one thing going on, and I was like, I know some people who would speak the other side of that issue, and we'll just see. We'll throw it out there. What's the worst they're going to say? No. And then I'm going to, cry myself to sleep that night. Well, that's only happened a few times, but you guys said yes. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I kind of led with that a little bit there in the intro, mentioning Evan. Everybody knows Evan, but for the listeners that don't, we're going to get into that. But before we do get into it, I wanted to make sure and give your other kids, Caleb and Taylor, I wanted to give them a shout out. I don't want them to feel overlooked, because we're going to be talking about Evan for a large portion of the episode today, and everything that goes into his story and your guys' family story and all that stuff. But I definitely didn't want to overlook them, because you guys raising a special needs kid like Evan, it takes the whole family. Mm-hmm. And I imagine Caleb and Taylor, along with all your extended family, they're just as involved and just as important in doing that. It's a real family effort.
It is.
So
we're thankful for all our family support that we have around this local area just to make that happen.
Good.
Because of him.
There you go, Caleb, Taylor. Everybody loves you. So there's your little 2 minutes of fame right there for my whatever we got. I don't know how many listeners we got anymore, but it's still growing. So maybe 10 years from now, it'll be in the thousands. Thousands of people just heard your name mentioned on air. So. Okay, so yeah, we're going to get into your guys' story real quick individually, and we kind of met and talked about this stuff, because a lot of your history I didn't know. Obviously, I know all about Evan and everything like that, but why don't we start with Leah? Give us a little bit on your history, and then we'll move over to Tim, and the audience will kind of get to know where you're from and what growing up was like, and then we'll get into the good stuff.
So I was originally from Maynard, so I graduated from as a Blue Devil from Maynard. So I was in this area, and I'm from a family of 5. I have 2 older sisters. My parents are still living on the same farm I was raised on. We literally did almost every sport we could except softball. I never did that, but I played volleyball, basketball, did track. We were a very close-knit family. We had tons of relatives around this local area, so I loved how we were raised with, like, what you think of going to a cousin's house. We literally played the night away, running around outside.
The good old days. The
good old days is what they say. And I do see some, like, of that of my own kids having friends over, and they'll play tag, and they will say, that was so fun, mm-hmm. Some of this stuff that we did on a constant, but they are not doing it as much, but I see a glimpse of it. Yep. So it makes me happy. But I was good at sports. I was good at my academics. I ended up being valedictorian of my class. I actually got to go to state basketball 3 years in a row.
Right.
But Tim will point out I never won.
Did she win, though? That's the question.
Yep. He likes to point that out.
The answer is
no.
Yeah.
No.
But I was on all tournament team.
I never made it to state, so you got me on that.
But some people, they'll hang their hat on that. Second place means we're better than everybody else but one.
We didn't even get second place, but I wish. But so I was raised in a very loving family. I loved how my parents, they didn't have much, as my mom and dad will say. So we went out and worked for it when we were younger. So it gave us good work ethic.
Good.
You didn't mention it's a dairy farm, right?
It was a dairy farm.
And in
that
the 80s,
turned into
dairy was not good.
Not good, yes. It was. But I even said to Tim over and over this, I never felt like we didn't have without, because my mom had a huge garden. We raised our own meat. Until you really wanted, like, junior high school, when you wanted the Lucky Jeans and the Guess jeans, that I had to go work for that. And, mm-hmm. But I never felt like without when I was growing up and stuff. But I will say my parents didn't really talk about politics when I was getting raised up or anything like when they were raising us.
Okay.
But that's something that you'll kind of understand. Tim and I switch that. We do talk about anything
You bring
and
up the
everything.
issues, yeah.
Issues in our household, kind of pros and cons and everything like that, because someone's filling that void.
Oh, they're
So
going to
it
have a
mustn't-
worldview, and you can either influence it for the good or let the world do your, absolutely.
Yep. And so that's something different probably from my childhood that we probably do a little different. We talk a lot about that.
Good.
Even money. A lot of people don't like to talk about money.
Right.
In that older generation. And we're like, nope, this is kind of some values that we can pass along to
Yeah,
you.
that's how you prepare them.
Yep, exactly. So I was raised Lutheran, got confirmed as a Lutheran, and then
Oh, I didn't know that. We're going to have to end the interview. No, I'm kidding. Of course I'm kidding.
I can stay. I was not Lutheran. So.
Me and Tim will finish it from here.
I will say I did move more Tim's way. The holy roller is what I will say. We'll
Okay.
once in a while
Okay.
raise our hands in church, I guess you could say.
There you go. I can't even clap in church when the music really gets going. You know,
Yeah.
a handful of people start clapping with the. I have no rhythm. I'm purely a white.
You're the guy
Midwesterner.
that everybody's like, quit clapping,
Stop
Bubba.
clapping. Well, yes, exactly. Man, I have no rhythm.
I wish we had video of Evan in church
Oh,
because
yeah,
he
he's,
loves
He
the
gets
music.
into it?
He does, but he
Nice.
has no rhythm too. It's hard sometimes to stay
He
on
does
rhythm.
like a Stevie Wonder thing, whereas he puts his head up and like waves it back and forth, kind of like.
Yes.
Yes.
I like it.
He gets into it.
Anyone that's seen him at a Christmas concert, he kind of gets that. I go, oh, the Stevie Wonder came out and Evan
Oh,
tonight.
that's awesome.
But yeah. So then I went to UNI. I actually went to UNI for mathematics, but then I veered and went
Okay.
chemistry. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to do that for 40 hours of my life. So
Wow.
then I was like, you know what? Pharmacy school. So I veered that way and graduated UNI, went to Iowa for pharmacy. And that's where I will kind of merge later with it. But that's where Tim and I met down there.
Wow.
So
That's a big, you went from nerd major to nerd major to nerd. You guys are
Never got out of the nerd.
no.
phase.
You're too intelligent to be sitting down here in my basement right now. That's the truth of the matter. But wow. Okay. So yeah, Tim, let's move over to you, man. That's kind of a short, quick rundown. A lot of
Yes.
people go way more in depth, but that's the basics, and we got a
Yep.
lot of stuff we're going to cover. So let's let
Yeah.
Tim get in here and tell us about the legend of Tim Schneider.
So the legend started in Clinton, Iowa in 1977. So that makes me, 46 now, I believe?
my
You're
goodness.
a guy. You
Yeah.
say your age.
So you're definitely in the Bo Jackson era.
Bo
'cause
Jackson
I was real
my
little.
jam back in the day.
Okay.
I saw Bo Jackson play baseball with the White Sox. So after the hip replacement.
Yeah.
So yeah, born in Clinton, Iowa. Very loving family. Very. My parents again are like Leah's are still together. Happily married. Getting older. They're right around 80. My dad's 82. My mom's 78, I believe. So they're kind of at that phase where we're trying to actually in the process of moving them to a new house and whatnot. Kind of more appropriate for their age. But yeah, so grew up in a very loving family in town. I grew up in the city. We actually live outside of town now in the country. This is the first time I've ever lived outside of the city limits. So
I countrified him.
yeah, for sure. I wouldn't want to move back into town currently.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, someday who knows what happens, but pretty happy out there. But yeah, grew up in town. Clinton's,
How big is Clinton?
I was just going to say that Clinton, I think when I was coming up, around 30,000. It's shrunk somewhat a little bit. I think it's around 25 now, but a decent sized city.
It's 4A still.
Yeah, it's 4A. It's
Okay,
a big
yeah.
high school. Yeah.
So it's as big as it gets in Iowa.
Yeah, very blue collar. Used to be very heavily, factory type work, that kind of thing. Interesting fact about Clinton: it was at one time, I believe, the richest city in America due to lumber, because it's right on the Mississippi River.
Oh,
so
yeah.
lumber
Trade.
barons and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
up and down the river.
Yeah,
Okay.
their minor league baseball team is called the Lumber Kings. now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, where was I? So yeah, coming up in Clinton, we grew up in town on a block where a lot of young families. So we would play out with the friends in the neighborhood.
Street lights.
Street lights, come on, you got to make it home.
Yes, that's something we had in common.
Yeah, so we were outside all the time. We did, we played video games back then too, like the kids do now, but it was like Atari and,
yeah.
We eventually graduated to Nintendo and Sega and all that, but for sure we were playing outside, playing sports, big into baseball when I was a kid. Big into basketball. Those were my two main sports.
Okay.
Played soccer a little bit too as a youth with like YMCA soccer leagues and that kind of thing. But very much into sports, all things sports. I collected sports cards, sports memorabilia, read Sports Illustrated. Very into sports as a kid. Yeah. Grew up with one older brother. He was a little under 2 years older than me. He beat me up all the time. Made me a little bit tougher, I guess.
Older brothers are the worst.
He was huge too. Like he outweighed me by 50 pounds pretty much all through my childhood. So he was a protector at times, but also bullied me up pretty good too. But all good. So going to school, I actually went to a private school, through kindergarten through 8th grade, just across the river in Fulton, Illinois.
Okay.
It's a Dutch town basically. So the interesting story I tell is when I was in band in grade school, I played the trombone, and our school would march in the parade in Fulton, and it's a Dutch Days parade.
Oh,
so
boy.
I'm German, fully German, and I'm in a Dutch outfit marching in a parade, wooden shoes and all, playing my trombone. Yeah.
I just
anyway.
tried on those shoes just
Yeah,
recently.
like I said, we're moving my parents over to a new house, and we're going through some of their old stuff and found the old wooden shoes in the closet.
Oh, my
and the
goodness.
little outfit and everything.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, interesting. Anyway. So I went through 8th grade to that school. My freshman year, I went back over to the public school in Clinton, so on the Iowa side. Wanted to play baseball in high school, and that the private school over there didn't have baseball, a baseball program. So I went over there, played baseball, through high school, played basketball, did some soccer. I think that was really the only three. I never did track really or anything. I never played football, primarily because like when I was growing up, we didn't have football at that school at all.
Okay.
So by the time I was a freshman, I was like, it's probably that ship has sailed. So
yeah, that'd be pretty rough.
Yeah, just learning how to, I always watched football, but just learning how to play and everything, just decided, I'll just stick with the sports I know. But as far as like church background, grew up, like Leah had said, maybe more of a holy roller type situation. The church it's Open Door, or Church of the Open Door, and it's a 4-square denomination, very kind of Pentecostal.
Yes.
Very, hands in the air.
Energetic
for sure.
I like that.
Yeah.
My mom played the piano organ for the church. So I grew up like being at the church multiple times a week. My mom would go and, practice for the following Sunday.
Sure.
I'd be sleeping on the pews there, and like very much so grew up in the church. Yeah, so I went to Clinton High School, graduated there, ended up going up here to UNI. Actually, back up a little bit. I went to Clinton Community College for a year. So community college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do out of high school.
Right.
Went to Clinton Community College, still didn't really feel like I knew what direction I wanted to go to. So I started working in a factory there in Clinton, International Paper, stacking up boxes of Big Macs and you name it, Budweiser, Bud Light, cartons, all sorts of paper products, printing and gluing and making all that stuff. I was going to take a year off and just take that year and kind of figure out what I wanted to do and go from there. I didn't make it the full year. I sat a semester out, and I just decided like I can't do that.
Factory life is not for
Factory
you.
life was not
That's
for me.
not a diss to anyone. We
No,
appreciate it.
It's
No, I'm a
hard.
lifelong factory
Yeah.
worker. That's it.
It's
No.
hard work. Like
is.
the part of it that I couldn't adjust to was the swing shift. So you did. I can't even remember exactly what it was, but like 3 days of 12-hour nights, then like a day off, then 3 days of 12-hour days, and then like back and forth. They
How could they not figure out a better? I think the ethanol plant was still doing swing shifts for a while. How do
So
we
like
do
I would
that?
sleep in our basement. You could get it pitch black in there, and I'd wake up at like 2:00. I'd look at the clock, and there'd be days I'm like, is it 2 a.m. or 2 p.m.? I'm not even really sure anymore. So I ended up moving. I came up to UNI at that point. So the spring semester of that sophomore year, came up to UNI. I knew some people up here, and pretty much from that point on, I was like I'd say about a 3.6, 3.7 GPA.
There you go.
Like really dedicated to like I've got to make this work. So
I'm not going back to the factory.
yeah, was pre-vet for a little bit, and I worked at a vet clinic there in Cedar Falls. Kind of decided I don't like cats so much. Is that fair? I grew up with cats in the house even. My mom always had a cat. So we had a cat my whole childhood, but those cats are wild. So switch back. I was, already taken some of the like pre-med classes. That's what you do for vet anyway. And then I was sitting in the union studying one day, and there was a table of people next to me, and I heard some girl saying, I'm going to pharmacy school next year. And I'm like, interesting.
Wow.
So I applied for pharmacy school, got into pharmacy school, having never worked in a pharmacy.
Wow.
Yeah, got in. And again, that kind of brings us to where Leah said we met in pharmacy school. Never met at UNI, even though we were there together at the same time. Lived a house apart from each other.
What did we say, mate? That very well could have been her that
Yes.
you overheard. We
Yeah,
don't know.
I was like,
we'll never know.
Sometimes my mind goes there a little bit. It was a blonde. Okay, I'll just go ahead and say it. It was a blonde chick that was pretty good looking. Leah's pretty good looking. I don't know for sure. But my mind sometimes fills in that gap that is like, that was probably Leah. It was just like
when I tell the story to other people, I'm connecting
that's how it's
those
gonna
dots.
be.
Yeah, look what God does, guys.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and it's funny because it's probably between me, Beth is one of our good friends, and Amanda Smith are the only people from UNI that went
That would
down
fit that
from
description.
That
Okay.
did fit, but that's the only people that really went from UNI to Iowa that same year as him.
Okay.
So hence why we ended up like sitting together and just we all UNI people kind of clumped together down there.
Right.
Even though I kind of was the outsider because all you guys were like biology majors and I was the chemistry major, but we had a mutual friend that we were literally like work buddies actually. So we both worked in the pharmacy at Osco Drug at that time, and so she knew Tim and I knew her. So.
Did you really just try and like separate yourself, saying, "Oh, they were all biology and I was so
Yes.
different"? And
Those
Tim is
chemistry
like,
people, I'm
Wow,
telling you,
yeah,
but-
that's I mean, I get it is worlds apart, but come
Hey,
on, like,
this is my claim to fame because I will say, and you'll kind of get into it later, but Tim has blown me out of the water in his career. So this is my living my past. I don't know if you know, he's now officially the director of pharmacy at Allen and St. Luke's.
oh, big dog.
He is a
There you
big dog
go.
now.
I like it.
But when
I always
we were,
say it's always from I get the support from home. That's
There
where
you
it all starts.
Hey,
Oh,
behind
Scoring brownie points here.
Yeah.
behind every great man is an even greater woman.
There
That's
you
what
go.
I say.
I will say,
So I was not
it's
a
team.
valedictorian, I'll just say, in high school.
Yep.
Late bloomer. That's what
He
you
was
are.
I'm
a
a
late-
late bloomer.
When it came time, when the rubber met the road, Tim got to work, got
Yep.
serious. Absolutely.
And what was our motto in pharmacy? Well, not so much mine. I was serious about pharmacy school, but yours was C's gets G's.
C's get degrees.
Or C's
I got
get-
better than a C. I had a
He
B
did.
average in pharmacy
He
school.
did.
But I let off the gas a little bit for
But
undergrad.
him and one of our good friends that they were kind of more, I wouldn't say the slackers, but you skipped a lot and still pharmacy school. Now you're both directors.
Yeah.
So that's just, none of us would have been like some of these people that were high to do and sitting in the front of the class. They probably would get their mind blown knowing some of these people.
You are in the top seat now.
Yeah.
So in pharmacy school, there was a kid that was in my high school class, but he ended up being a year behind us in pharmacy school. He saw me in the hallway of the pharmacy building. He was like, what is Tim Schneider doing in pharmacy school?
Yep.
Because let's just say in high school, I was not an academic, very much into the party scene. Let's
Yep.
put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, like your mom says, she'll admit it, that how many years from like age 16 to 22 or 23, she loved you boys, her sons, but didn't like you very much.
Yeah, we were.
They gave,
we got a little wild.
See,
Yeah.
look, this is we've run through the high school circuit a little bit. We got some high school listeners and stuff, and some fans, Dallas Tissue and some of those. So it's good for them to hear some of this. Yeah, we're the grown-ups now, but we were in their shoes once too, and we maybe did stuff we shouldn't have done, and yeah, caused. I mean, that statement when you guys told me that really rings true. Your mom loved you but didn't like you. Like, I can really relate to that. A lot of teenagers, if you stop and think about what your world is only so big right now, you're only thinking about, most teenagers anyway, that relate to us. I mean, you're thinking about how can I do what I want to do and have the most fun. And you're not even thinking about like, what are the consequences of that? Like,
I will say some of the consequences, if we did get in trouble for some of the things, you would not be where you're sitting.
Could have impacted career down
Right.
the road.
Down
Right.
the road.
And that's hard to get a teenager to
Yes.
think of that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
You need
I
a
know.
parent to tell them one bad choice, and
Yep.
there you go. It's messed up.
It is.
So
I oftentimes say I got through that phase of my life from a lot of prayer from my grandma and my mom.
there you go.
Yep.
I was
Nice.
I was up to no good. Let's just put it
Okay.
that way for quite some time.
There you go.
Well, and that's what kind of drew you in, is meeting me, you said.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to pull that out.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
Bubba was impressed with that
go
one.
I
back,
was.
We'll go back to college. So I was wild. I was into, partying, drinking, some drugs, to be honest with you. And just that party lifestyle.
Yep.
I still was, I was getting good grades, honestly, but I was not living my life for the Lord. That's for sure.
Okay.
Even though I always felt that conviction inside of me, would still go to church at least a couple times a month, not weekly necessarily while I was in college, but I always found my way
Okay.
into church somehow, some way, and had that conviction, but I was definitely not, on fire for Christ
Sure.
or living
Oh, I
how I
gotcha.
should. Got to pharmacy school and I was still hanging out with some people that probably shouldn't have been and partying pretty hard. But met this kind of group in pharmacy school, met Leah and was smitten obviously right away. So the story goes, I think it was towards the end of our first year of college of pharmacy school. We had a test coming up and I didn't buy the books.
What?
I'll just say my special talent really bloomed in college, wherein I'm very good at taking tests and doing very, very well at them. I'm not good at daily homework, this and that.
No
and,
kidding.
And in pharmacy school, you show up and take the test and do well, you're going to do well. And I'm very good at that. So I didn't even buy probably half the books, just took some notes, or actually borrowed notes from people.
So you could get by with the lectures and stuff,
Yeah.
and you could retain that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
But anyway, so this particular class, I was I didn't buy the book. Of course, Leah bought the book because she's all on top of it. And I was like, hey, can I borrow the book? And so I went over to borrow the book.
Oh,
And then brought the
hang it.
book back to my apartment, and then I never once opened that book. And then Leah had to get the book back, and had to come over to my place to get the book back. It was all just a ruse.
Genius.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, we were kind of starting to, I think, had eyes for each other a little
Yes.
bit, and we were study partners, or we had a group of 4 or 5 where we all studied together.
One of our good friends that I worked with, we kind of made a mention of Beth. She went to pharmacy school with us. That he now works with her.
She works at Allen.
Yeah,
with me.
she works
Okay.
at Allen, but is my best friend, and we went down there together. And I remember telling her, Beth, I had a dream about Tim last night. She goes, you don't want to date Tim. And so now
I make fun of her all the time.
Yeah.
You told Leah not to marry me. Now look, 20 years later, I think things are all right.
It all comes out on the What Is Up podcast, people. It all comes out.
she's the one that will self-admit that you are the only one that has flipped to a no to her to a yes to
Yeah,
her.
usually she doesn't get swayed once
Yeah.
she's made her decision.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah,
It's
so
worked out.
like I said, going back to I was not living the
Yep.
right way. Really had an interest in Leah, obviously, and I felt like I wasn't the type of guy that she would have wanted.
Yes,
right.
yes.
And so I wanted to become that guy that she would have wanted, and I pretty much snapped out of that kind of lifestyle pretty quickly once
Awesome.
Leah and I started dating. We started dating pretty much right around then, and just kind of cleaned myself up, and so I give Leah a lot of credit for kind of where I'm at today. And
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuck out to me big time. I mean, here, before you guys showed up, I'm just finishing up my Father of the Bride speech for the wedding next month. And yeah, there's a lot of that stuff in there because a few years ago, Ryan was not that guy in my eyes. But yeah, that's cool. We don't need to get all emotional. We'll just keep moving. I'll save it for the wedding, I guess. You never know. For those of you, not to get off topic or anything, but their wedding is at a venue, so space is limited for the wedding and for the reception, and there's it's very stressful for them right now deciding who to invite to what and not and all this stuff. So all I can tell you is this Father of the Bride speech is going to be epic, and B, if you're not there, Hopefully it goes viral. That's
There
all
you
I'm going
go.
to say.
There you go.
We call that a teaser in the
Yep.
business. So,
Yep.
yeah, I loved how you said that. That definitely is something I wrote down in my notes, that you were not the kind of guy Leah would be interested in. So you made it your mission. I need to be that guy, or someone else is going to get her. That's awesome. So then what happens? Okay, obviously she says, "Oh, Tim cleaned himself up. He's my kind of guy."
Yeah.
Where's it go?
So we
from
started dating right there pretty much after our first year of pharmacy school. Kind of
Yeah.
through that summer is where we got together. You can go
Yeah.
ahead, Leah. I said you were going to do 90% of the talking. I feel like
I
I'm
know.
doing dang 90% of the talking.
Well, I will say then I'll take up that kind of situation. So we started dating after the first summer of it, and I knew there was another guy kind of after me in pharmacy school.
Of course,
He
yeah.
was sitting behind us. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Sitting
We don't
behind
have to
us.
say any names,
We
but-
won't say any names. And as soon as we came back that fall and we were dating, he moved up to the front of the class. So he used to sit around us. So,
That's
sorry.
All's fair, man.
But, yep.
how
So
it goes.
I don't blame the guy,
Yeah.
But
So
I just
he-
beat him to the punch.
Yep.
And let me guess, that study group, once you guys got serious, all of a sudden that study group, no, now it's, I got her. I don't need you guys. I
Yeah.
don't need you guys to
We
get me
actually
close to her.
we all still hung out. Like,
Did you?
Yeah.
we still
all the
keep in
study.
touch, and
Yep.
it was a good group.
It
of
was a
people.
good group.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we ended up getting married then. So we started dating that summer. He proposed that next February, and we got married in August. So
There you go.
between first dating to getting married, it was 14 months. But we were friends that first
We
year.
were kind of friends that first year of school,
Yeah.
though, hung out together.
So it
a
was
lot.
pretty quick. And so we were then our last 2 years of pharmacy school, we were married.
Nice.
Then.
Why
Yep.
wait? When you
Yep.
know it, you know it. What's the point of waiting?
Yep. And so it worked out. So we ended up graduating, and then we moved to Quad Cities. This is when pharmacy was in short supply, and there was
Okay.
huge sign-on bonuses.
Ooh.
And we went to Quad Cities so both of us could get sign-on bonuses. Kind of transplanted ourselves down there because he had family down there, so it wasn't that big of a
Okay.
deal. But I will say Gwen and Ellen were hanging out up here. Those are my sisters, and I was getting a little homesick.
Aw.
And claustrophobic because we were in town. And it's just weird walking your dog and you had to stop. And I'm not rude, so I would talk to everyone and you would never get your walk
Oh,
done.
No, you talk to everybody.
Yeah. Yes. So
Wait, would they talk back in the city or no?
Oh yeah,
Would they?
We had friendly neighbors.
We had friendly
Yeah.
neighbors.
See, I thought you were going to, because where I come from, you don't talk to people you don't know. That's
Oh.
how big a city I grew up in.
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't. You don't even look at people if
No,
you don't know.
we
I
were
moved
in
to
a good-
Dunkerton, and everyone's, that's small
Yes.
town life. Yeah, you learn
Yep.
to talk to people.
And we were in a nice subdivision, so it was people were friendly.
But you
Okay.
walk out your
that.
back door and there's neighbors front,
Yeah.
back, side to side looking at you.
And
Yeah.
you probably
Yep.
never realized that. And I didn't expect that when I was going in college. But then when you're trying to settle down and raising kids, I was literally, I was told Tim, we need to move. And
Farm girl at heart.
yep.
Yeah.
What is Lindsay's dad always said, being you could take the girl off the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the girl
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so he tried to take me out, but we went back. I was I need property. And so that was probably our biggest gamble, is moving out in the country, because you've never moved up. or
Did you have
lived.
jobs lined up when you came
When-
Yeah,
back?
so when we were in Davenport for 6 years.
6 years.
So had
Caleb.
had Caleb and Taylor there in Davenport.
Yep.
They were born
Okay.
in Davenport. Moved up to this area in 2011.
Yep. Pregnant with Evan.
Okay.
And I'm going to say my sisters made me cry that move because they didn't know I was pregnant at that time. And we were literally moving all the baby stuff. And they were
Why don't you just get rid of this stuff?
yeah, as sisters would say, why are you keeping this stuff? Get rid of it. You're moving. And literally as soon as they were kept on barking at me, I'm I'm pregnant, So that's
That was
how
the
it
big
had.
announcement.
That was a big announcement. They bullied me into my saying I was pregnant, my third one.
Why not say it right away? I'm lost. Hang on.
We kind of were pretty early into it. I think we
Okay.
were as 6 to 8 weeks or something. It was
Oh, and you
pretty,
still-
but
yeah.
I knew I was pregnant. It was just that I didn't want to really announce it to
Yes.
everyone.
Okay. See, I'm kind of
Yes.
dense when it comes to that. Sarah
Yeah.
reminds me all the time. Sometimes moms don't announce it yet in case something happens or
Yep.
whatever. You don't. And
Yep.
as a guy, I have no clue as to why you wouldn't announce, and then it makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
I got
So
you.
it was really early in the pregnancy. And so we moved up here. And it was a God thing, honestly. Like
And
our
I
house.
already lined a job up and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up at
That friend
Allen.
that we talked about, Beth,
wanted me.
was there at Allen, and a job opened up, so she reached out to us. knowing
Nice.
we were looking to potentially relocate. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And she always wanted me to be up there, but we're like, no, Tim's the full timer. So that's what the beauty of our, like when we started having kids, we were like, someone needs to be more available for kids. So
Yeah. Yep.
I got to go part time, and Tim got to be the professional person, 40 hours
Yeah,
a week
yeah.
and stuff. So we did. When we moved up here, like we were like, oh, do we move? Do we not? We pray over it. We'll see if things line up. Well, he got a job. Our house sold within 24 hours down there. It was just like everything was lining up.
Yep.
And then this is going to kind of lead into Evan and stuff. I was pregnant with Evan, and at that time, we did not know he was special needs. There's
Okay.
not really a testing at that time. Don't know if there is quite yet any with all the genetic testing now
Yeah,
advancing
maybe it
so
improved.
yeah. But at that time, there was nothing to even like see it. My mom just lost her job at Rockwell Sumner.
Okay.
And she was a blessing in disguise losing that job because she became our in-home nanny.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look how them doors open.
Yes.
Man.
So it was awesome. But yeah.
we lived in Denver for 6 months when we moved up here.
So
I can
Denver,
see you
Iowa.
guys being Denver people. I could see it.
No.
I'm glad
Tell-
you're not.
Yeah, no.
Thank goodness.
Ask Tim why not.
I couldn't take the maroon and gold and,
And
the
cyclone.
cyclones. I was like,
We're
let's get to some
Hawkeye fans.
Hawkeye colors. Let's go to Wapsie.
Yep.
Yep. That's
Yes.
it. The colors. Okay.
Yep. So we ended up finding acreage over here, and the rest is history. So
Nice.
yep.
All right. Well, yeah. So let's get into the part, everyone, that I really think you guys can encourage some people. We'll get into Evan's story then.
Yep.
You said no, you had no idea, and that's something I didn't know because
Mm-hmm.
at the time we were going to church with your sister Gwen and Paul and them, and we were all in Sunday school together. And so as the news started coming in, like I had just always assumed that there was a test done and you knew, and that was that. But then when we sat down and talked, you're like, oh no, it was a surprise at
Yep.
birth. And
Yeah, we had never done any of the genetic testing or anything on any of our kids. Like it
Right.
wouldn't have really mattered to us that much.
Yep.
Um,
Which is what that's what Sarah said all the time. I remember her not checking that box
Yeah.
or something. I'm like, why
We
would
never even found out boy or girl.
Yep.
for any of them?
Any
Nope.
of them.
Good for
All of
you.
them.
We
Good
always
for
kind of
you.
thought, there's not too many surprises in life nowadays. There's three
That's
big
it.
ones, I guess.
Yeah.
That's it. We did the same thing, and we're like on this because we knew we thought we thought 3 was enough, and if I had went back after the consultation for the procedure, I would have actually gone through with it after James, and then we'd never have Grace. But I didn't go back, so 4 years later we had Grace, and but yeah, we said let's find out this last one because we know Grace is the last. We know this kid's gonna be the last one. JJ was so naughty at the time.
Oh.
I spanked him more than Bridget and Timothy combined, and I was like, what if they come back and say it's a boy? We couldn't handle it. We're like, nope, it's going to be a surprise. It's
Yep.
going to be a surprise.
Yep.
So, yeah, we never found out either. That is a good surprise.
Yep.
Kids, young people, enjoy the surprise.
Yes.
Man.
And I like you said, not too many surprises in life and
Right.
are planned. But I would say we went to the hospital. Evan was born, and bam, they hit it like a ton of bricks. The doctor came in, and he did not say what he had. He just kind of was his bedside manner was lacking, and he just like, there's something. He looked at Evan. There's something wrong.
Okay.
And we're like,
Okay. We're like, okay.
Okay.
And he didn't have any answers.
So I think he knew, and like as they said it, there's all these things added up, but nothing glaring to know what was wrong for that doctor. So I'm going to give him a little grace about it. Sure. But instead of just saying, I don't know, he was dead silent. My mom was pissed because she was in the room at that time. And so like, because you could tell that we were like, is he Down syndrome? Is he what?
Right.
And he just left, and the nurse had to come back into the hospital room and like, I've seen a lot of Down syndrome. He's not Down syndrome.
Okay.
The nurse had to come in and say that to us. But then just this question mark, like I will say that's probably it was the worst night of our life because
Sure.
Tim had the two older kids, had to go home with them. I had to grapple with this new baby, being like, what's wrong with him?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. No one knows. So then we kind of reconvened, but wouldn't you agree that was like the worst night
It was a
of our
tough
life?
night.
It was
just
a
your
tough-
mind goes a little crazy on what exactly are we
It probably
dealing
doesn't
with.
stop, right?
Yeah.
Your mind goes the whole time.
Yep. And
What was he actually? So what was? Were you holding him that night?
Yeah, he did. I will say after having 2 other kids, like that was probably a blessing because his cry was even unique. He
Okay.
cried, but he didn't have that like big wail. I do remember that specifically,
Okay.
that I was like, okay. But then so he still has funky
We should
feet.
mention he was born at 10. He was 10 pounds.
Yeah, he was 9
He was
pounds.
a big, like he was 2 weeks overdue. He wouldn't come out of there. He was
Yeah.
9 pounds,
15
15
ounce.
point some, so 10 pounds.
That's
Right.
probably one of the bigger around here, isn't it?
Yeah.
My goodness.
So then he
Man.
had his hands were fused, like
Mm-hmm.
fingers were fused.
Syndactyly.
He had really weird feet, which he still does. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's going to be his bane of his existence. What else was like just pretty glaring? But then they did more tests. He had some undescended.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say
Put that out there on the.
Well, they're
board.
down. They're down.
Yeah.
It's okay. But I mean, some of that stuff that they said that once you add it all up, usually maybe one thing might be wrong in one, like a baby, but
Okay.
it doesn't have like anything per se, like syndrome. But when you add them all up, that's when they were
Something-
like,
yeah, something's
something's
going on.
usually triggering it.
Okay.
Okay. Is how they kind of said it.
Okay.
So then the next day, a pediatrician came in. She gave a whole list of potential. But then the neonatologist, that we're just another God thing. He just started there. He studied at Georgetown. He literally looked at him. He goes, "You're going to do genetic testing, but this is what I pretty much think it is." And he gave us a pamphlet of it. And he goes, "We'll get it confirmed within 2 weeks." And he was right. So to everyone listening, we have no shame of like people asking, but it's called it's Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome is his actual syndrome. And it's about like 1 in 300,000 to 1 in 250. I think some of the genetic testing now it's considered super rare.
Okay.
Most
So-
doctors we've been to have never even
Even
have never
seen-
heard of it or have never seen a patient with it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So kind of think of it, Down syndrome is like 1 in 800 to 1,000.
Yeah.
So that put that in
Yeah,
perspective.
that does
I
put it
think
in
it's
perspective.
it's
Yeah.
higher than that now for Down syndrome, but
Is it?
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. but-
Like one
But-
in
yeah.
yeah.
So this
Like
is much,
this.
much more rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we had to get some genetic counseling as a family and stuff like that early, but just getting that diagnosis, and it was so outdated the stuff we were reading earlier on, it was like from the 1970s. It gave us no hope. So I'll be honest, the first one to admit that I went into a deep depression. I probably looked like my bubbly self on the outside, but I was struggling at
Sure.
home.
Yeah.
Like behind the closed doors. And then he was such a sickly kid. Going back to my mom, it was a blessing. She was able to be our in-home nanny at that time. And he was so sickly, like even the doctors were like, do not send him to daycare. His immune system cannot handle
Okay.
it. So he had like feeding issues. He was right away pretty much bottomed out to 6 pounds, 12 ounces, I think is lowest. So he was like 915, bottomed out. He was a failure to thrive. He couldn't even suck, swallow. He was drowning in his own milk. So that was the main, but then he went into all these other things that he had to get corrected. So he had like 8 surgeries, 9 procedures is what he had in 14 months, in the first 14 months. But what really kind of turned that was he was a month and a half old, and it was one of our times at Allen, because we were in and out of hospitals at that time quite a bit leading up to that. He actually coded at Allen and had to get airlifted. And this is the kicker. It was on med air. You're talking to 2 pharmacists that we know the consequences of
Yeah.
medical.
Yeah.
And it was ended up being like he had too low a sodium
Okay.
in his bag that they were pushing it, and he got air flighted to Iowa City
Wow.
and stuff. And then they, correctified or whatever, and we were down there for about
Correctified.
10.
Yeah.
That's the
That's a
medical
Leah.
That's
terminology.
yeah.
Yep.
Big degree
Actually,
over here.
that's
Making up
Leah.
words.
If anyone knows me, I do that all the time.
That's okay. That's okay. But you said like that was a big moment for you because, like you said, you were struggling internally, maybe not showing people, but you said that kind of snapped you out of like it's time to be mom here and
Yes.
get tough and get in gear.
It was the first time I wasn't wallowing in my self-pity about having this special needs
Just to
son.
touch on that maybe real quick too. I think bringing this back to, I think God used this in our lives to draw us closer to Him.
Oh, I
Like
bet.
I think we're very type A type people, where we're driven to succeed at all costs, and I think we were potentially becoming somewhat prideful. I mean, we had very good careers. We had 2 great, beautiful children, Caleb
Sure.
and Taylor. A third on the way. Life looked great. We're like living well, right?
Yeah.
And I think pride creeps in, and I think, I don't know if this is how God works or not, but I think God gave us Evan to bring us to Him and to bring us back down to earth and
Okay.
and really focus our lives more on what's important. So
Yeah, I wouldn't. For anyone out there who may, I don't want anyone to take that the wrong way. You're not saying the God that us three know, the God of the Bible. He's not a God who says, "I'm going to do this because you deserve it," and this and that.
no, I agree with
You're,
you. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're coming at it from the other side. Just because something like this happens in our life, it might be hard, but it is the best thing for you. And
Yep.
sometimes God gives us those things, whether it's a closed door, whether it's a special needs kid, whether whatever. Yeah, maybe it isn't what we wanted, but I don't want to fast forward to the end of the story. But you guys say you wouldn't change it for the world.
Like you said, it's not maybe what we had wanted or planned, but it's what we needed.
Yeah,
I
there you
think.
go.
And,
There you go.
And I think it's what the world needs a little bit, is a little more Evan sometimes. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
But
so-
okay, I didn't mean to sidetrack.
No, go ahead. That's
Leah can now talk
That's
90%
good.
of the time.
I don't even know where we
You
were
said
at now.
you said he spent 10 days in the PICU.
Yes. So he was because he was a month and a half, he was now a pediatric patient. So he
Okay.
was 10 that was at a month and a half, and going down to Iowa City for that 10 days, he came out with like 6 specialists on his case.
Wow.
So that helped a ton. And it was the first time, like that first month and a half, I was like wallowing in my self-pity. Like Tim said, we have this picture in our head, and I was like looking at our Christmas cards, geez, this perfect family. And then now we're not going to have this perfect family per se. But if you kind of fast forward, if you know me, Evan makes our family perfect now.
Sure,
So it's like that perfect little cherry on the cake,
Yeah.
or icing on the cake, cherry on the
Cherry on
sundae
top. Yeah.
And so we were down there, and that was the first time like really like stopping my self-pity and wallowing in it to fight for him.
I think we finally got the help we needed.
Yeah.
Like, his situation is so rare. We just couldn't quite find the doctors to show us what to do
Yeah.
or how
Yep.
to take care of him. And down there we got like
he got the G tube,
GI.
right?
He got a G tube so we could feed him.
I mean, I know we're pretty fortunate to be this close to Iowa City and Mayo Clinic. I
Yep.
mean, really, from what I've been told, but isn't it the kind of the case where if something really rare comes up or something unknown even comes up, in Iowa City and Mayo, every doctor wants to be a part of it because it's kind of like, I don't want to say a notch in their belt,
There
but
is
they
some
do.
of that. We
Yeah.
have several of the specialties are like, would you guys mind if we write a
Yep.
paper up? Or
There
do
you
this,
go.
that?
There you go.
You know, so there is that for sure. It's some of those educational type places. Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Yep. So we did get that help that we needed, and I will be the first person to advocate. Like, I had a cousin kind of going through this, and I'm like, just go get tested or go get the help. I will be the first one being like, go seek it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we just didn't have anyone in our corner to tell us that. I feel like everyone was like fumbling up here in Waterloo area that we didn't know
with
what to
us
do.
being in healthcare, you would think we would know exactly where to
Yeah.
go and what
Sure.
to do. And we really didn't. We were
Yeah.
kind of lost a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, kind of going back to that though, Evan has like that first like year was pretty struggle with the surgeries and stuff, but like then he kind of, there was this lull, like we're just praying that he would like be able to eat on his own, because they were
our
preparing.
big three
Yep.
initially were
Eating.
He could eat on his own because he was on a G tube.
Yep, for 3 years.
Yeah,
Talking and potty train,
Okay.
and they have all
they all
kind of-
came. They came late as
You
compared
got
to
there.
others, but
You
we
got there.
Yep. And
See,
even,
and that's the part that I remember. I remember getting like the weekly, monthly updates in Sunday school. This is where Evan's at now. They had the surgery to, separate his fingers. They did this. This is how Leah and I don't think we had ever met you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy now looking back on it now, but like that's how a church family works. You sit there in these small groups. Church isn't just the 1 hour up in the big room singing some songs and listening to somebody speak the word of God. It's those other moments. It's the Sunday school. It's the small groups. It's getting to know people, do life with people, realize, nope, even the family in town that looks like they got it all together, they don't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody's messed up. And then sharing and being vulnerable, sharing these needs, because so many prayers were going up for Evan. And I mean, it even got to the point one Sunday, I can't remember what I think I was preaching on church family and things like that. And if I'm good at what I do, I'll insert that clip right here, because I gave Evan a big shout out and stuff, but I was just kind of sharing about like, yeah, that's my only connection to the struggle you guys went through was Paul and Gwen sharing every Sunday. And Gwen was breaking down on certain Sundays because she knew like, this is a long road. This is not ideal, but look at you guys now.
Yep.
I guarantee you people are going to be encouraged by you sharing today that didn't know it. And all of us in town here, we couldn't imagine Evan not being around, you know what I mean? And Grace and him are close in class and stuff. So it's just, yeah, it's been awesome. I know it's been tough, but it's been awesome.
Yep.
Maybe you don't get out of it with just a quick prayer here and there. Maybe it's a long drawn out prayer. I can remember in a young adult Sunday school class in the basement, one of our members shared a prayer concern for their sister and her husband, and the kid that they were about to have was probably going to have some birth defects, and it was going to be a long road. And when that kid came out, he needed lots of surgeries over the years. So we prayed for them for what seemed like years. It was probably only months, but it was week after week, update after update, surgery after surgery. And we just faithfully prayed for them. And I don't even know if they know it, but it was definitely needed. And now when I see that little boy at a football game or anything, when anybody sees little Evan Schneider, he instantly puts a smile on their face. Whether it's just seeing him and I think of those memories of praying for them, or he will come over to you and literally put a smile on your face, because he's a special needs kid and he just, nothing but smiles and love for everybody he comes along, whether you know him or not. So if you haven't experienced that, this is where you experience it. So
I will say a lot of people were praying over him in his younger years and still continue. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very thankful.
and
for
now
all
he
that.
wants to pray all the time.
Yeah, isn't that he does?
He makes people pray.
Yeah.
love it.
So watch out, high school
Yeah.
kids. That's what he.
There we go.
He pretty much does it.
If we happen to forget to pray over a meal, even if we're out to eat, or just you
Oh,
get
good
a
for
little
him.
bit too busy and you just start eating everybody at maybe different times.
Sure,
He's like,
sure.
we gotta pray. And he'll tell who needs to pray tonight. It's either me or
good.
Caleb or mom or sometimes him.
Good.
Yep.
He's going to be that kid then that goes into public high school and reminds everyone else that the kids don't have to check their Christianity at the door.
Yeah.
If they want to pray, they can pray. If they want to bring their Bible, if they want to do reports on biblical events, if they want, some kids think none of that stuff is legal or something.
Yeah.
It's like, no, just get a little educated. You
Yeah.
don't check your beliefs at the door. You can't stand up while the teacher's teaching and start, reciting scripture. You have to, there's the right times and places, but yeah. It's definitely I
will say
good things for Evan.
Cute tidbit. He always used to. Our pastor Nicole always says like his used to, like in Sunday school, the answer would be Jesus of the Lord. Like any answer, that was his answer. Until
Nice.
now, just recently, and this is a cute story of him about church. He watched the crucifixion movie, like a kiddie version.
Okay.
on Palm Sunday.
Okay.
Now we can't have him. He keeps on talking about killing Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm like,
He
he's
actually
like-
has quit now.
So,
he's on
yeah.
to something different. But,
But
there
he's
for a
like,
while after Easter,
I
he was
wanna
like, I'm going to kill Jesus. And we're like, no, that's not not what we're supposed to take out of that situation.
And then we kind of turn it being like, oh, buddy, all of us already did.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
done.
it's done. We did it. Part of us are all.
I think now he's on to Jesus is with me.
Yeah.
which is
Okay,
much
that's
better.
much
Yeah,
better.
much
Yes.
better.
Let's lead with that one, Evan.
Yeah.
That's good. Stick with that one, buddy.
Yep.
Okay. But you said to me, you guys were saying, okay, so now as he's progressing in things and getting older and he hit the big 3, you're saying the gap's getting a little bit bigger between him and his peers.
So I will say, this is the one thing I will say out of genetic counseling. It's called constant sorrow. And I can kind of see it in myself that she's like, oh, you're kind of probably sad now. And then it will go away. But, it might pop up its rear ugly head to you like later on when against his peers. And we're starting to see some of that now. Is like back in the day, it wasn't such of a big deal. Like he was to not be able to read, when they're only reading like the beginning books.
Yeah.
But now he's still stuck in the very beginning books and they're reading like novels and stuff like that. But even just like the friend group. And this is not to condemn. I just hope that people that are listening, that they teach their kids to be kind.
Yeah.
But we know that he's not going to have the same kind of friends like our other kids have.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it just has to do with intellectual like process. He can be a hard like pill to swallow. We just went camping with Tim's side and he's like on repeat over and over and over. I think adults can take that more than kids.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
his peers probably like are like, he keeps on saying the same thing, over and over and stuff. And that's something that just recently came up so he was diagnosed with epilepsy, it will be 2 years,
Not
years
quite
this
2
summer.
years, yeah.
Yep. This summer.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. And what's crazy about that is even a shout out to Caleb and Taylor. This is how in tune they are to him. We never saw it. Caleb and Taylor were the first 2 to recognize it. Caleb called me at work and was like, I think he had a seizure. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Nothing. Then it happened to Taylor, but we hadn't yet seen it. And then boom, we saw it and we're like, our kids know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But that's how in tune they were to his normal and seeing something that wasn't right. So they were literally a month and a half ahead of us.
Nice
on
work,
that.
kids.
I
Good
know.
job. Good job.
I know. But yeah.
But you say he's also like maturing and stuff. At
Yes.
Church and camp and things
he
like
loves
that.
Yes.
That's always good to see. Like, yeah, the gap may be getting bigger or whatever, but he's still
Yes.
still moving along. And you guys had some really nice things, to say about, because the school then now, how do you bring him along with his peers? And you guys shared a lot of stuff about the area education agency and the school, who really it was, I don't know, groundbreaking, I guess, in that area.
So our first special ed teacher said he never qualified for summer school.
Okay.
And so we paid his aide at that time to come in and like work with him because we knew we're like, he's going to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were willing to put our money where our mouth was and stuff. And then we got a new special ed teacher at Wapsie and she's like, what? He qualifies.
Sure.
They've been probably doing no because they didn't. So we went and saw this beautiful thing. So we went to the school board with two other couples. And at that time, so a weird story is Evan had to go on Medicaid to get all the help he did from Iowa City.
Okay.
It's a long, weird story, but Tim works at Unity Point. They were not even willing to pay for his swallow therapy that was right across at Covenant.
Oh.
They were trying to make us go to Peoria, Illinois. And so then our doctor was like, get him on
It's in network.
It's in network.
I get that, but let's be realistic
I know.
here.
So
Or even
and
let
I'm
us
like,
stop in Iowa City along the way to
Yeah.
Peoria.
Yeah.
No.
And
Good
so,
grief.
with a 6-month-old kid.
That was it was like
earlier
less
than
than that. That was
Yeah, it
before
made no
his
sense.
swallow.
So I mean, he qualifies for Medicaid. We put him on Medicaid.
Take
basically.
advantage.
Yep.
We kind of had to just
Get him
We
to
can't
Iowa.
drive to Peoria multiple times a
No.
month.
Yeah. So we went down to got all the specialists and perfect for it.
Good.
But that feeds into how the school. So since he's on the waiver program, there's like two different kinds of, like a ill and handicap, and then there's like a mental one for the state of Iowa. So I will say, use the resources you got. So by putting him on Medicaid, this opened up to a whole nother level of resources. We went to the school of Wapsie. They paid him just alone for Evan, paid for the special ed teacher and the van driver. Now, if they had to aid, the school had to. So we even had it out like we were the nerds. Our nerd came out and we had it all like itemized, like how much. So we went to school board being like, hey, this is how much it's going to cost the Wapsie. And really, they used Evans at first to get 2 other kids in that because it was already paying for the teacher.
Yeah.
And so he was the groundbreaking of getting
Nice.
special extended school year paid for at Wapsie.
Look at that.
Now I don't even know how many kids are.
I don't know. They do one at
Involved.
elementary, at the elementary, and like I know he's going out to high school, so he'll be with Mel Curley.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
summer they're transitioning them all already.
So all that to say, I think we would love to, show our appreciation to Wapsie. They've been excellent to work with all along the way here, with Evan especially. Didn't notice it as much with our older two because they haven't had to utilize any of these resources. They're pretty high performing in school and whatnot. But really, they have really done everything they could to help us with Evan, one-on-one aids every year, all of that kind of stuff.
Oh,
so
that's good.
we have become very big proponents of the school district.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah, tough time. I mean, that's opportunities for growth right there. That's what it looks like when you get it right. Then you use those challenges to grow and do better and all that. It sounds like the school district sure did. And you guys did your part. So, yeah. Let's see what else we got here. To kind of, I don't know, we can end it with some lighter stuff here. We're crossing the 1 hour mark, so we're gonna go a little bit over on this, but that's fine because we want to squeeze in this last little bit here. You said you kind of got a little closer with the Amish communities because of Evan being down in Iowa City and things like that. You had some good stuff there, but then you said, as he's getting older, some of the lighter moments, the moments you're kind of enjoying is like you said he'd wander off at the fair.
Yeah.
He
was young.
He's
He
a
was
wanderer.
younger at that time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So these are older memories. Okay.
Yeah.
Somewhat, but he tends to get free stuff everywhere we go.
Yes.
Somehow, some way.
Love it.
So the story at the carnival, it was at the Bremer County Fair, and we had met a couple or some folks there that we knew, and we're standing around talking a little bit, and he kind of squirted off.
He had my hand, but then he broke away.
Yeah.
And he just was like a bull in a china shop and had his, he was
had his
focused
mind on
where
something.
he was going.
He wanted that big pink elephant that
Yeah.
you couldn't see.
And
yeah.
literally people would stop for him, but I had to wait for people to pass, how
was
people
crowded.
crosses.
Sure, yeah.
They wouldn't wait. They wouldn't wait and stop for the mother trying to chase
Like you
down
still had
her.
him in your vision, but
Yes.
just a ways
Nope,
off.
I
a little
gotcha.
bit.
Yeah. So I was following him and waiting for people to cross, then get a little further. By the time I caught up with him, he was behind the actual carnies table and talking to him.
He couldn't
And
even talk.
They
He was
couldn't talk.
blabbering.
He kind of for about
That-
first
that-
6 years, he would be ba 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 dot dot dot, and so he
And
was doing
point
this
and-
to the carny, and I was like, Evan, you can't be behind that. You get out here. That's for them. And how did he put it, Tim? He's
Well,
like,
they gave him
yeah.
a big stuffed animal, not one of the little ones,
Yeah.
not the huge ones, but a decent sized
Sure.
one. And he said something to the effect of, "Yeah, we like to give stuffed animals to kids." And he kind of stopped himself, not knowing how to complete that thought. And we're like,
It's
if
okay.
you know Leah and I at all, we are not easily offended by any means. It is what it is. We just roll with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely. That was definitely in my notes right there when you say that, because sometimes we don't know. In the PC world, you're scared to say anything, and it just Yeah, I love how you guys said that. Like, we're not the guy didn't know what to say. He
Yeah.
knew he kind of walked right into
and
it.
that's understandable.
Yes,
I get it.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's you guys are just, that's a great response right there.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent a lot of time talking about Evan, and I'm glad you guys shared everything, because yeah, there is stuff that I learned about the whole deal, and I know Evan, and I've had Evan put his hands on my face and make me smile and different things, and I love seeing him around and everything, and that's why I was bothered when the issue came up of this lady Kate Cox, and her baby was diagnosed with trisomy 18 or trisomy 18. I don't know, people say it different ways or whatever. And she's in Texas, which now has a heartbeat bill or law in effect and everything. And she wanted to have an abortion. And guys, to the audience, this is the What Is Up podcast. This is why I kind of started this thing. That way people who disagree can be reminded it's okay to disagree. You can still have conversation. Our culture has shifted in recent years to be, if we disagree, we're now enemies, and we shout and scream, or we don't talk, or you're dead to me, and that's just not the way it used to be. Debate of ideas has always been a good thing. It's a bedrock of our country, I think, of our freedoms, if you think about it. You don't want to be forced to believe one way or the other. So don't get offended. If you want to turn it off, I guess you can, but I don't think you're going to want to, because this is an important conversation to have. So this Kate Cox, she has this baby, and it's diagnosed with this defect, and she wants to have an abortion, and she can't in Texas. She has to now leave the state and all this stuff. And so I'm thinking, okay, that's a tough situation when you get that call or that test comes back like that or whatever. It's nothing you want for anybody. It's not ideal. But then she's kind of like celebrated, and then the lawmakers in Texas are vilified for forcing her to do this, because rarely when a woman's diagnosed with this, or the baby's diagnosed with this, rarely is her life in danger. And her life wasn't in danger. All she had to do was find one doctor to say that it was, and then she could legally have an abortion, and she couldn't, so she had to leave the state to do that. And Sarah points out, so I start doing research. I start listening to people. I start finding out what trisomy 18 is, the extra chromosome, or all these different things. I'm just trying to research, and I'm just like, my goodness, there's got to be a better way to handle this. And Sarah has a friend on Facebook who instantly puts out this post, and Sarah shares it with me. This friend she grew up with, I think her name is Micah Anderson Barraza. I can't remember for sure, but it's, and she shared this statement that, yeah, her son was diagnosed with trisomy 18, and he just graduated high school, plays high school baseball, all that stuff. And it was, sometimes it can be a false diagnosis. Sometimes the kids can actually, they may only live a few hours, a few days, a few months, but her son's 18. Like, it can work its way out. And to me, being pro-life, knowing that every conception, that is going to be a child made in the image of God, it deserves a chance at life, and we shouldn't take that life. So if Kate Cox had brought that baby to term, and let's say the baby doesn't make it to term, that's the way it worked out. Let's say she brings it to term, the baby lives for a few hours. It had a chance at a few hours of life. It lives for a few days, a few hours, whatever the case may be. That, to me, is the humane thing to do, is to give that child a shot at life. And that's why I initially thought you guys had known, and you shared with me, no, you didn't know. Mm-hmm. But that's neither here nor there. So you had shared, though, Leah, that you grew up, or at some point you had pro-choice views, mm-hmm. and you kind of, you resonated with me as far as, once you get educated on it, it's very easy to change and go to the other side of the issue.
Yes. I was raised in a very pro-life, I would say, because I remember my mom there was an issue in our family that a cousin got mm-hmm. false two positives about the Down syndrome, came out normal. And it kind of really tore up our family about people that were like, maybe you should abort it.
Yep.
Should you not?
Yep.
And that was my first inkling about my mom being like, nope, that she should just have it and stuff. And he's went on the military, was did well for his life. So, and just thinking if they would have,
yep.
he would not have been here.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And it's just crazy. So I remember this conversation. It was you, your brother and me, and you guys were pro-life and I was pro-choice, and I wanted to die on the hill about being like, how about the rape and the incest and stuff? And that is where everyone, so it's kind of funny how everyone goes to that.
Yeah.
And it's even under Planned Parenthood, if you educate, that is under less than 1%.
Less than 1.
And it was, it's even minute compared to that. And that's on their own site.
Yeah.
And they'll say it. So if everyone's even talking about that, let's talk about the 99 that's not.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
If just because everyone loves to go to the 1%. And I used to be that one.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm saying? But so I used to be pro-choice just for that reason, being like, we don't know, that. But now, just educating, going through the education of like really the whole abortion, and just thinking of how kind of hypocritical it is when like the same people that can have like miscarriage can get bereavement for it, but then are the same people saying, oh, pro-choice, to have a baby the same per se weeks die in that and not get murder charges. To me, like, that's like, that is what's crazy about that. Like, to me, which I don't know, the younger generation, bereavement is like when you're at a job, if you have a miscarriage, if a woman like is pregnant and it loses it, she can get time
Get
off.
some time off. Yeah, to grieve or
Yep,
whatever.
to grieve. Just some of this stuff. But I, like, through life, just I've run into many people that have, like, helped me change my views from pro-choice to pro-life. So I was in high school, and I won't say names, but I was good in sports. So I was like a freshman playing with junior seniors a lot, and I played up.
Yep.
And I remember hanging out with my sister and her friends, and we were in a vehicle, and one of them just was bawling. None of us knew it at that time. And maybe her closer ones knew it, but I was in this, so I was like this little like teeny bop girl, not knowing what's going on. And she admitted that she had an abortion. It was like the anniversary of it. Yeah. And so she was just kind of going through this grieving. And the more people that I've known throughout my life is some of this like guilt that they carry of it. Yeah. And I've also had people come at me being like, well, that guilt is put on by people because they're saying it's wrong. I'm like, first of all, none of us in that car knew she had it. No one, she's not getting guilt from anyone else except maybe it's something innately God put us in about morality, being like, maybe that's what in her inner self was trying to come out in that. And just kind of like seeing some of these people. And I see all these posts now because I think this is going to be the hot topic about this coming
into November.
November. Like a lot of women that I feel are very good women are saying, I'm pro-choice because I don't know what circumstances certain people are in. Right. I don't want to judge people. I'm not judging just because I'm pro-life. I'm pro-life because I do think that I carried 3 children. I thought instantly when I knew early on, within like immediately 4 weeks, I was saying, oh, my baby. Yeah. How can I not think of that any other way? So if you think of that in your own body, how can you say it in other people's body? Well, it's a clump of cells. Right. So I kind of feel like there's tons of hypocrisy, and I understand you not wanting to condemn people because they're in a tough situation. Yep. But guess what? We all go through tough situations, and it goes back to like Evan. Evan's a tough situation, but we thought, I'll be honest, we thought he was a curse at first. Sure. But he's the biggest blessing of our life. And you don't know what people are, the future of that baby inside them, what they can hold. Right. Yeah, they could be killing the next Einstein, the next person to cure cancer. We don't know.
Or even just the next Evan that spreads joy all over the place. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That kid is smiling all the time.
Yep. And that's a great point, because they're literally choosing in some foreign countries to wipe out Down syndrome.
Yeah, they are.
Genetics.
They are.
Yeah.
Give them a chance.
Yep.
Give them a chance. They deserve
They
it.
have something to bring to the world. And
Absolutely.
God created
Yep.
them in such a way that they do have something to contribute.
Yeah, and just thinking of it, just like how Hitler picked on Jews, he specifically trying to exterminate due to that they were just this condition, their Jewish religion. They're literally picking out this condition because something in their genes, and they're trying to wipe it out.
Yeah,
like, to me,
yeah.
I'm like, I just can't fathom like picking on someone like just because of this one thing in their genes and wiping them out.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. That's one of the biggest things, I think. I've done so much research. I've listened to women's testimony. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that stuff because I want to know the issues. I want to know both sides. That's one of the biggest lies they're told right away when they walk into the clinic is, we're going to take care of this, and when it's done, you can move on with your life. Clearly, you experienced they don't quite move on. A part of them dies that day. They're never the same. There's all kinds of stuff we could get into. I'm just going to run down the quick list. In 2024, we are past the day of saying it is a clump of cells. People, educate yourselves, then make your decision. I love watching groups like liveaction.org or whatever do man-on-the-street interviews, and they just show people, okay, this is how far a baby's developed. This is what a first trimester abortion looks like. And these people agree to go on camera saying, I'm pro-choice. They watch it, and then they're moved to tears. And they instantly change their position because they were educated on what it is. It is a baby, okay? Another big lie. Ending a life is not health care. It's not reproductive care. That's the big thing. That's the big thing is once you gain control of the meaning of words, then people can kind of be deceived and tricked into taking a certain stance, okay? You kind of hinted to this one, Leah, but if the abortion doctor is speeding or driving recklessly on the way to the clinic because he has an appointment and he has an accident and he kills the mom and the unborn baby, he can be guilty of manslaughter for 2. But if he kills that baby 10 minutes later inside the clinic, he gets paid for doing it. Wrap your mind around that, people. That does not seem quite right. Abortion does not solve the problem, and women don't get to move on like it never happened. They're changed forever. Just look up testimonies of women who have gone through it. They will tell you it's not solved that day. Okay? And how did all this start? Planned Parenthood, the founder, Margaret Sanger, avowed proud racist, the author of eugenics in these minority neighborhoods, and the minorities are still the biggest customers of Planned Parenthood. You walk into a Planned Parenthood and you choose life, how much service do they offer you? How much help do they offer you? None. Guess who does? Your Christian nonprofits, okay? And guess who took all the funding away from the Christian nonprofits and started giving billions to Planned Parenthood, okay? Look that up for you. That's why it's pretty easy for me to decide who not to support this November, okay? Let's see, what else do we got? The abortion pill, that's a big one. That is a big one in our day and age. And I will tell you, the name of it turns me off right away. I've done a lot of research on this. The name, you guys are pharmaceutical people. The name of it, RU486. Slow that down. 86 means to kill something, correct? RU4 86ing this baby. Okay? And then what happens to the mothers? They have a baby in their home or in a hotel in the toilet, and then they realize it's the size of the palm of their hand. What do they do with it? They suffer this trauma. They can't flush it. It looks like a human being. What do they do with it? They've been misled. Okay? There's plenty of other options. Okay? Even if the baby's terminal, even if the baby's diagnosed with trisomy 18 or whatever it may be, okay? You can carry the baby to term. You can have an emergency C-section. Give the baby a chance at life. Don't take the baby's life. And my last point before we wrap it up here. People on the other side of the issue, Bill Maher's a big one. He is a big one. But at least he's honest. I'm not even going to play the clip because it ticks me off, but at least he's being honest. He said, abortion is killing a human being. It is. He said you can't deny it. But he said he's okay with that. He said the world's this big. It's got this many people in it. Nobody's going to miss some unborn babies. Okay? He said the quiet part out loud.
I can respect the absolutist position. I really can. I scold the left on when they say, oh, you know what? They just hate women. People who aren't pro-life, the pro-choice, they don't hate women. They just made that up. they think it's murder. And it kind of is. I'm just okay with that. I am. I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. I'm sorry, we won't miss you. That's my position on it. What?
Is that the side of the issue that you want to be on? That's all I'm asking. Tim and Leah, if they had known Evan was going to have this diagnosis, ask them today, would they rather have Evan here or not? Okay? It's a tough situation, and they're conversations I'm willing to have with people, okay? But some people just aren't. They just want to yell and scream and just get educated on the issues, then take your stance. That's all I ask. Okay, I'll get off my box there. So hopefully, I know you guys encourage people today. I don't know if I did at the end, but that's part of talking the issue out. That's what it looks like. I mean, you have to. I'm not going to force anybody to believe the way I do, but I want you to have all the information. So, if you guys enjoyed this episode with Tim and Leah, or maybe you know a family that's gonna be having a special needs kid or has right now and they're at the beginning stages of it and they need some encouragement, let me tell you, Tim and Leah's story is exactly what they need to hear. So share it with them. Okay, share the podcast with them. Let them hear this. I bet you it'll help them in some way, shape, or form, because us three think that's kind of how God works. He uses people. He uses our experiences, our lives to help other people. So you're not going to want to miss part 2, though. Next week, we're going to get into their segments, and they pick some good ones. We're going to have some fun, going to lighten it up a little bit, okay? We're going to talk about their favorite movies and their best memory from childhood and who their favorite Robertson family member is. That's right, we're all Duck Dynasty fans, aren't we? Of course we are, okay? But then we're going to get into the What Is Up segment, and they picked some good ones. A first-timer. I'm going to make sure we have time for it. One of these guys, I think it's Tim, wants to talk about aliens, UFOs, UAPs, and no one has ever chosen that. So we're going to get into it because it's never been something I was interested in until a day on Capitol Hill where somebody testified and said, yes, we have spacecraft, not of this world, and non-human biologics were inside. What does that mean, and how come no one talked about it any more than that? So we're going to get into that next time on the What Is Up podcast, part 2 with Tim and Leah. Lord willing, I'll see you then.